Hey, janitor man! Clean this up! Tyler Morrison smirked, deliberately knocking over his drink across the freshly mopped floor. Orange juice splattered everywhere as his friends erupted in cruel laughter. "Of course, young man," Marcus Williams replied calmly, reaching for his mop while students filmed and mocked him. "Know your place, old man. People like you should be grateful to have any job at all." Marcus said nothing, quietly cleaning the spilled mess as more students gathered to watch the humiliation. In their eyes, they were watching a helpless janitor being put in his place. But these privileged students had no idea what was about to unfold in the coming days. The morning sun cast long shadows across Westfield Academy's pristine campus. This prestigious high school stood as a beacon of academic excellence in the quiet suburbs. Manicured lawns stretched between modern buildings, while expensive cars lined the parking lot. Parents dropped off their children with pride, knowing this institution would pave their way to Ivy League universities. "Have a great day, sweetheart," called Mrs. Henderson as her daughter Emily stepped out of a gleaming BMW. "Thanks, Mom. Don't forget about the parent meeting tonight." Emily adjusted her designer backpack and walked toward the main entrance. The school's reputation attracted families willing to pay premium tuition for what they believed was superior education. Inside the hallways, lockers slammed shut as students hurried to their first classes. Trophy cases displayed decades of academic and athletic achievements. The walls were lined with portraits of distinguished alumni who had gone on to become doctors, lawyers, and business executives. Among all this grandeur moved a quiet figure that most barely noticed. Marcus Williams pushed a janitorial cart down the polished corridors. His dark uniform was always clean and pressed, his movements methodical and purposeful. He had been working at Westfield Academy for over 15 years, arriving before dawn and leaving after sunset. "Morning, Mr. Williams," whispered Sarah, one of the few students who acknowledged him. "Good morning, young lady. Have a wonderful day." Marcus continued his routine, emptying trash bins and mopping floors. To most students and faculty, he was invisible. They saw the uniform, not the man. They noticed the mop and bucket, but never the intelligence in his eyes or the quiet dignity in his posture. The first bell rang, and students rushed past him without a second glance. Marcus stepped aside, allowing them to pass before returning to his work. He had grown accustomed to being overlooked, but it never stopped hurting. Principal Davidson walked briskly down the hallway, barely nodding in Marcus's direction. "The floors look great today," she said without stopping. "Thank you, ma'am." As the morning progressed, Marcus moved through his tasks with practiced efficiency. He knew every corner of this school, every stain that needed attention, every broken fixture that required repair. This place was as familiar to him as his own home. The trouble began during lunch period when a group of privileged students gathered near the cafeteria entrance. Tyler Morrison, son of a prominent lawyer, was holding court with his usual crowd of followers. His expensive sneakers and designer clothes marked him as one of the school's elite students. "Look at that guy with the mop again," Tyler snickered, pointing at Marcus, who was cleaning up spilled food near the vending machines. "I know, right? Same old janitor doing the same old boring job," laughed Jessica, flipping her blonde hair over her shoulder. "My dad says people like that never amount to anything. That's why they end up cleaning toilets for a living," added Brandon, the quarterback's best friend. Marcus continued working, pretending not to hear their cruel comments. His jaw tightened slightly, but he maintained his professional composure. He had endured worse treatment over the years and had learned to let such words roll off his back. "Hey, janitor man!" Tyler called out loudly, causing other students to turn and look. Marcus slowly turned around. "Yeah, you. Can you clean up this mess I just made?" Tyler deliberately knocked over his drink, sending orange juice splashing across the freshly mopped floor. His friends erupted in laughter, delighted by their leader's audacious display of disrespect. "Of course, young man,"
지금
Marcus
북한 채널
replied
다 찍으려고
calmly,
그러지.
reaching for his
나
mop.
어저께 보고 깜짝 놀랐어.
"That's what I thought. Know your place, old man." The humiliation didn't end there. Throughout the week, these students made Marcus their primary target for entertainment. They would intentionally drop food in clean areas, stick gum under desks right after he cleaned them, and make loud jokes about his appearance whenever he passed by. "Bet he never finished high school," whispered Ashley during chemistry class. "Probably can't even read properly," added Connor, causing his lab partner to giggle. "My mom says people like him are lucky to have any job at all," Jessica chimed in. Marcus overheard these conversations as he emptied their classroom trash. Each word felt like a dagger to his heart, but he maintained his silence. He had learned long ago that responding to such cruelty only made things worse. The situation escalated when Tyler decided to film Marcus working. "Check this out, guys. I'm gonna make a video called A Day in the Life of a Loser," Tyler announced, pulling out his smartphone. He followed Marcus around, recording him mopping floors and cleaning windows while providing his own commentary. And here we see the natural habitat of the uneducated janitor. Notice how he can only perform simple, repetitive tasks. Marcus finally stopped working and faced the camera. "Please stop filming me, son." "Oh, it talks," Tyler exclaimed dramatically. "Say something funny for my video, janitor man. I'm asking you respectfully to stop." "What are you going to do about it? Tell the principal? I'm sure she'll really care about some janitor's feelings." Tyler's friends joined in, making exaggerated cleaning motions while filming themselves. They pretended to be Marcus, speaking in mock accents and stumbling around with imaginary mops. The video quickly spread through social media, with students sharing it and adding their own cruel comments. Marcus became the school's laughingstock overnight, though he remained unaware of his online infamy. Teachers who witnessed these incidents looked the other way. Some felt uncomfortable, but didn't want to confront wealthy families whose donations kept the school running. Others simply didn't consider the janitor's dignity worth defending. Marcus went home each evening feeling increasingly isolated and disrespected, but he never complained, never fought back, and never revealed what he was truly thinking. 3 weeks after the filming incident, Westfield Academy faced a significant crisis. The school's financial records revealed serious budgetary shortfalls. Enrollment had declined, and several major donors had withdrawn their support. An emergency board meeting was called to address the mounting problems. Principal Davidson stood nervously before the assembled board members in the school's main conference room. The mahogany table was surrounded by concerned faces of trustees, parent representatives, and community leaders. "Ladies and gentlemen, we need to discuss our current financial situation," Principal Davidson began, shuffling through her papers anxiously. "How bad is it, Helen?" asked Dr. Peterson, the board chairman and father of 2 current students. "We're looking at a potential deficit of over $2 million this fiscal year. Without immediate intervention, we may have to consider staff cuts or even closure." Murmurs of concern rippled through the room. These were people who had invested heavily in the school's reputation and their children's futures. "What are our options?" inquired Mrs. Chen, president of the Parent-Teacher Association. "We could increase tuition fees significantly, but that might drive away more families. We could also seek a major donor or consider selling part of our property." As the discussion grew more heated, someone knocked on the conference room door. All eyes turned toward the entrance. "Come in," called Dr. Peterson impatiently. The door opened slowly, and to everyone's amazement, Marcus Williams stepped inside. But this wasn't the Marcus they knew from the hallways. He wore an impeccably tailored charcoal gray suit, polished leather shoes, and carried himself with unmistakable authority. "Good afternoon, everyone," Marcus said, in a clear, confident voice that none of them had ever heard before. Principal Davidson's mouth fell open. Several board members exchanged confused glances, wondering why the school's janitor was interrupting their crucial meeting.
네가 잘 된 이유가 있어.
I apologize for the
착한
interruption,
영상들을 엄청 많이
Marcus
봤잖아.
continued, but I believe I can help with your financial concerns. Excuse me, but this is a private board meeting, Dr. Peterson said sternly. You shouldn't be here. Marcus smiled calmly and reached into his briefcase, pulling out a leather portfolio. Actually, Dr. Peterson, I have every right to be here. You see, I am the primary stakeholder in this institution. He placed documents on the table that made several board members lean forward in disbelief. My name is Marcus Williams, and I own 65% of Westfield Academy's property and assets. I also hold controlling interest in the educational foundation that funds this school's operations. The room fell deadly silent. Principal Davidson's face turned pale as she stared at the legal documents before her. This can't be right, whispered Mrs. Chen, picking up one of the papers. I assure you, it is completely accurate. For the past 15 years, I have been observing this school from a unique perspective. While working as your maintenance staff, I have witnessed both the institution's strengths and its most troubling weaknesses. Dr. Peterson fumbled with his glasses, studying the documentation that clearly established Marcus's ownership claims. But why? Why work as a janitor if you own the school? Because I wanted to understand what kind of environment we were really providing for our students. I needed to see how people treated those they considered beneath them. I wanted to witness the character development happening within these walls. Marcus walked slowly around the conference table, his presence now commanding the room's complete attention. What I discovered was deeply disappointing. Students routinely display cruelty toward those they perceive as inferior. Faculty members ignore blatant disrespect and bullying. The values we claim to instill are contradicted daily by the behavior we allow. Outside in the hallway, word was spreading rapidly among students and teachers. Tyler Morrison stood frozen near the conference room door, his face drained of color as he overheard fragments of the conversation. Did he just say he owns the school? Emily whispered to her friend. That's impossible. He's just the janitor guy. But the evidence was undeniable. Documents were passed around the conference table, confirming Marcus's ownership and his substantial financial contributions over the years. I've been funding scholarships, building improvements, and teacher salaries through my foundation, Marcus explained, but I have also been taking notes on the systemic problems that plague this institution. He opened another folder, revealing photographs and documented instances of student misconduct that he had quietly observed during his years of service. Tyler Morrison and his group have consistently engaged in harassment and discriminatory behavior. Jessica Crawford has repeatedly demonstrated classist attitudes. These students are not learning the values of respect and empathy that we should be teaching. The board members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Some recognized their own children's names in Marcus's observations. Furthermore, several faculty members have failed to address these issues despite being aware of them. This represents a fundamental failure in our educational mission. Principal Davidson finally found her voice. Mr. Williams, I had no idea about your background. If you had known, would it have changed how I was treated? Should a person's worth be determined by their perceived social status rather than their character and actions? The question hung in the air, like a challenge that no one dared answer. Marcus returned to his seat at the head of the table, clearly establishing his authority in the room. I called this meeting because it's time for significant changes at Westfield Academy. We will address both the financial crisis and the moral crisis that has been allowed to fester. The following morning, an all-school assembly was announced over the intercom. Every student and faculty member was required to attend. As teenagers filed into the auditorium, nervous whispers filled the air. Word about yesterday's board meeting revelation had spread like wildfire throughout the school. Tyler sat in the back row with his usual group, but their typical swagger was nowhere to be found. His hands trembled slightly as he stared at the empty stage, dreading what was about to unfold. "I heard the janitor is actually rich," someone whispered behind him. "That's crazy. There's no way that's true," Ashley replied, though her voice lacked conviction. Principal Davidson stepped up to the podium, looking visibly shaken from the previous day's events. "Students and faculty, we have gathered today to address some important matters concerning our school community." The auditorium grew quiet. Even the most restless students sensed the gravity of the moment. "I would like to introduce someone who has been a part of our Westfield Academy family for 15 years, though many of you may not have properly met him." Marcus Williams walked onto the stage, no longer wearing his janitor's uniform. He wore the same distinguished suit from the board meeting, and his presence immediately commanded attention. A collective gasp echoed through the auditorium as students recognized the man they had been mocking for weeks. "Students," Marcus began, his voice carrying clearly through the microphone. "My name is Marcus Williams. For the past 15 years, you have known me as your custodial staff member." Tyler slumped lower in his seat, wishing he could disappear entirely. "However, there is something about my role here that I believe you should understand. I am the owner of this school and the largest contributor to the educational foundation that supports your learning." The auditorium erupted in shocked murmurs. Students turned to look at each other with wide eyes, many unable to process what they were hearing. In the third row, Mrs. Morrison, Tyler's mother, sat frozen. She had attended today expecting to discuss her son's college applications with teachers. Instead, she was watching her family's world turn upside down. "More importantly than my ownership, though, is what I have observed during my time working among you. I have witnessed acts of kindness and genuine character from many students. But I have also seen troubling displays of prejudice, cruelty, and disrespect." Marcus's eyes found Tyler in the crowd, though his expression remained calm and measured. "Some of you have treated me poorly based solely on your assumptions about my job and my worth as a human being. You filmed me without permission, mocked my work, and spoke about me as if I were less than human." Jessica covered her face with her hands, remembering the cruel things she had said. Behind the auditorium, local news reporter Janet Mills quietly entered with her cameraman. Word of this extraordinary story had reached the community, and several media outlets wanted to cover what was being called the most dramatic school assembly in the district's history. Let me be clear. I chose to work in maintenance not out of necessity, but out of curiosity. I wanted to understand the true character of this institution and the young people we are shaping. Marcus gestured to a large screen that descended behind him, displaying photographs he had discreetly taken over the years. These images document incidents of bullying, discrimination, and cruelty that occurred right here in our hallways. Faculty members walking past students in distress, deliberate destruction of property, verbal harassment of fellow students and staff members. The photographs painted a devastating picture of the school's hidden culture. Parents in the audience gasped as they recognized their children in some of the images. "Dr. Martinez," Marcus addressed the Spanish teacher directly, "you witnessed Tyler Morrison deliberately damaging school property 3 weeks ago. You said nothing." Dr. Martinez shifted uncomfortably in her seat among the faculty section. "Ms. Thompson, you overheard students using racial slurs in your classroom but chose not to address it because the perpetrators were from prominent families." The English teacher's face flushed red with embarrassment. "The young man who filmed me and called me names sits in this audience right now. The students who deliberately made messes for me to clean are here among us. They know who they are." Tyler wanted to run, but his legs felt frozen. Every eye in the auditorium seemed to be searching for him. However, this revelation serves a greater purpose than exposing individual failures. Starting tomorrow, Westfield Academy will undergo comprehensive reforms. Marcus clicked to a new slide showing detailed policy changes. First, we will implement mandatory character education classes focusing on empathy, respect, and social responsibility. Second, Any student found engaging in discriminatory behavior will participate in community service with our maintenance and food service staff to understand the value of all work. Nervous energy rippled through the student body as they realized their actions would now have serious consequences. Third, we will establish a student mentor program where older students are held accountable for guiding younger ones in appropriate conduct. Mrs. Morrison stood up abruptly and walked toward the exit, unable to face the humiliation of her son's exposed behavior. Several other parents followed suit, their faces red with shame. Fourth, teachers will receive additional training on recognizing and addressing bullying and discrimination. Failure to act on observed misconduct will result in employment consequences. The faculty section grew tense as educators realized their passive complicity was being directly challenged. Finally, we will partner with local organizations to bring speakers who can share their experiences with prejudice and help our students develop greater understanding of diverse backgrounds. Marcus paused, studying the faces before him. These changes are not suggestions. They are requirements for anyone who wishes to remain part of the Westfield Academy community. In the silence that followed, a hand slowly rose from the middle section. It was David Chen, a quiet sophomore who had never spoken in assembly before. "Mr. Williams, sir, I just wanted to say I'm sorry for not standing up when I saw students being mean to you. I should have said something." Marcus nodded approvingly. "Thank you, David. Recognizing our responsibility to act when we witness injustice is exactly the kind of growth I hope to see." The assembly concluded with Marcus's final words echoing through the auditorium. "Remember, true strength comes not from putting others down, but from lifting them up. That is the foundation upon which we will rebuild this school's character." As students filed out, the conversations were markedly different from their usual chatter. Many walked in contemplative silence, processing the profound lesson they had just received. The weeks following the assembly brought dramatic changes to Westfield Academy's culture. Students who had once ignored Marcus now stopped to greet him respectfully in the hallways. The cruel jokes and deliberate disrespect vanished overnight, replaced by genuine acknowledgement of his dignity. Tyler Morrison approached Marcus one afternoon while he was organizing supplies in the maintenance closet. "Mr. Williams, sir, could I speak with you for a moment?" Marcus looked up from his work, noting the boy's humbled demeanor. "Of course, Tyler. What's on your mind?" "I wanted to apologize for how I treated you. I was wrong and I'm ashamed of my behavior. I deleted that video and told everyone else to do the same." "I appreciate your apology, son. It takes courage to admit when we've made mistakes." "Why did you forgive us so easily? We were really cruel to you." Marcus set down his cleaning supplies and looked Tyler in the eyes. "Because holding on to anger would only hurt me, and because I believe people can change when they understand the impact of their actions." 3 months later, Westfield Academy hosted its annual scholarship dinner. The event typically celebrated academic achievements, but this year carried special significance. Marcus stood at the podium as the evening's keynote speaker, addressing a room filled with students, parents, alumni, and community leaders. "Tonight, I want to share the story of transformation," Marcus began, his voice warm and confident. "When I first decided to work as a maintenance staff member at my own school, I expected to learn about building operations and student behavior. What I discovered instead was a profound lesson about human nature and the power of perspective." The audience listened intently, many still amazed by the turn of events that had reshaped their understanding of their school. "Young Tyler Morrison, would you please stand?" Tyler rose from his seat, his face flushing but his posture straight with newfound confidence. Tyler was one of the students who initially treated me with disrespect. Today, he leads our new peer mentorship program and has become one of our most effective advocates for inclusive behavior. Applause filled the room as Tyler nodded graciously before sitting back down. Jessica Crawford has organized 3 successful fundraising events for our scholarship program, specifically aimed at helping students from underrepresented backgrounds attend Westfield Academy. Jessica smiled through tears of pride, remembering how far she had come from the girl who once mocked Marcus. Dr. Patricia Williams, Marcus's wife and a renowned educational psychologist, joined him on stage. She had remained supportive of his unconventional experiment from the beginning. "My husband's approach may have seemed unusual," Dr. Williams addressed the crowd, "but it achieved something that traditional discipline never could. It created genuine empathy rather than forced compliance." She clicked to a presentation slide showing Westfield Academy's dramatically improved student satisfaction scores and reduced bullying incidents. Academic performance has also increased significantly since implementing these character development initiatives. Students who feel respected and valued in their environment consistently perform better in their studies. Marcus returned to the microphone. "We have received inquiries from over 30 schools across the nation wanting to implement similar programs. Educational consultants are studying our model to understand how authentic character development can be integrated into modern academic institutions." The transformation extended beyond individual students to the entire school ecosystem. Maintenance staff member Carlos Hernandez, who had worked alongside Marcus for years, now served as head of the newly created Student Life Support Team. "Working with Mr. Williams taught me that our jobs are about more than keeping the building clean," Carlos shared during a student interview for the school newspaper. "We are part of the educational experience. Students learn from watching how we carry ourselves and how we treat each other." The cafeteria staff noticed remarkable changes in student behavior. Food fights had become non-existent. Students regularly helped clear tables and thanked workers by name. "These kids actually know my name now," laughed Maria Santos, the head cook. "They ask about my family and remember what I tell them. It's like they finally see us as real people." Westfield Academy's academic counselor, Ms. Rodriguez, documented the changes in her annual report. "Student stress levels have decreased significantly since the Respect initiatives began. When young people feel they are part of a caring community, their mental health improves dramatically." The school board, initially skeptical of Marcus's methods, now celebrated the transformation publicly. Board chairman Dr. Peterson admitted his own prejudices during a community forum. "I judged Mr. Williams based on his work clothes rather than his character. That was my failure, and I have learned from it." 6 months after the famous assembly, Marcus received a letter from Harvard University's Graduate School of Education, inviting him to speak about innovative approaches to character development in schools. "Dear Mr. Williams," the letter read, "your unique perspective on educational leadership has gained national attention. We would be honored to have you address our graduate students about practical methods for creating inclusive learning environments." As Marcus read the invitation in his office, which was now properly labeled with his name and title as Owner and Director of Character Development, he reflected on the unexpected journey that had brought him to this moment. Sarah, now a senior and student body president, knocked on his door. "Mr. Williams, the new freshman class wants to hear your story during orientation week." "That would be wonderful, Sarah. What do you think they need to know most?" "That everyone has value, regardless of what they do for work. And that being kind costs nothing but creates everything." Marcus smiled, proud of how profoundly his students had internalized the lesson. The school that once harbored prejudice and classism had transformed into a place where every individual was valued and respected, regardless of their role or background. Marcus Williams had taught the most important class of these students' lives without ever stepping foot in a traditional classroom. His quiet dignity in the face of cruelty, followed by his gracious forgiveness, demonstrated values that would stay with these young people forever and influence countless others who heard their story.
My aunt and uncle have lived in Texas for more than 30 years, and many of my relatives also live in the United States, a beautiful country they now call home. However, whenever I meet my relatives, I often hear or even witness stories about discrimination. Sometimes it comes from the news, and sometimes it has directly affected my own family. My friends in America, especially those of different skin colors, told me that while things have improved compared to the past, many hidden forms of inequality and injustice still remain. Through these dramatized stories, I wanted to shed light on these issues. Not to blame anyone, but to remind us that respect and dignity must never be forgotten. And I truly hope for a future where stories like these are no longer necessary. Thank you for watching.